Okay, so I'm showing you the skeleton put together because it turns out it was harder than I thought. I actually put that big 20A piece you see, I actually put it in inverted, so I had the spars slanting the wrong direction, so I had to break it all and make new ones. So it's made of this piece here. It's made of this spar, which is the leading edge spar, the thicker one, and the trailing edge spar. And originally it's a piece of paper that just folded over like that, but I had this in 3 separate pieces. I have the 2 spars and that big rectangular piece. And then there's ribs, of course, that fit in there to give you the rest of the shape. Don't be scared, it goes together well. I just mean I messed it up, so it was hard to show it. It also has these doublers. There's one there and there's one on the front, giving strength to the wing that comes together. Now, you'll see there's a space there right in the middle, and that comes back to haunt me later. But the key part of this stuff is to make sure, see those little lines? That line there that goes along that particular rib, and see how it matches up with the line that goes on the spar. As long as you glue things together like that, make sure those things match up, everything stays pretty straight, and you've got everything. See, and there's another part, another rib with a spar, and there's the rib piece. As long as those go together, you're fine. Now that rear spar, and that piece that holds it together, and then the front piece, you can see that the leading spar, sweeps back, and the rear spar is perpendicular. But I had them backwards before. Anyway, so that piece and the rear and that piece and the first rib I put together and glued together and held while it dried, and I put in little bits of glue on those spots. Then I put in the ribs. They fit in very nicely. Now, one thing to watch out for is there's a twist in there. I actually got like some wash in on that. But now the fuselage, you cut out these 2 slots, and these turned out to be very accurate. They cut off very easily, cut them all the way out, and that's where your middle spars are going to fit in place. Now notice this one, they didn't really show this in the plan, but because the leading edge spar is angled, that middle doubler has to be cracked right there in order to have it all come together and glue in, give it strength. Not hard to do, but you just score that piece in the middle, and then when you put it in, it can be bent. Now here I'm pointing out again this middle piece. See that space right there? There's the middle. That's where the spars are supposed to come together, but they don't. You notice there's a space there, and we'll find out later that I think I should have made sure that those actually came together. But anyway, it still turned out okay, I guess. But you can see that those fit right in nicely, and you just make sure you line up the centers with the center line on the bottom of the fuselage, push it all the way up into the slots. And if you do that, you get an automatic, straight, true, nice skeleton there of where the wings are going to be attached, and you're going to skin things. So that actually looks really, really good. Now, the wings, again, are just skins like typically made, cut out. They have that strip on there, and you can see the little piece cut out. You cut out place for the wheel well, and you got another piece of strip that's going to be for a separate piece to go on leading edge because it's a hard curve to make. It's a hard angle. But this thing basically will be folded over like that and glued right over the ribs, just like that. So that's how it's ultimately going to fit, and actually turns out fitting quite well. That's the plan. Okay. However, that's what my fingers to remind me of, you got to put the wheel well in before you put all that together. If you're making this with the landing gear retract, you don't need to, but that's a finished wheel well. And later I'll show you how to put one together with a few steps. But here's the base of the wheel well, the interior, and that's this piece right in here. Okay. And then you can see around the edge, you got this piece that goes all the way around the edge, and it's got all these little flanges. That is this piece, okay, on the plan. So you first look at that, you don't know what it is, but you end up putting that together, and you can see it folds together, and see how those pieces go underneath the tabs, and you even cut a little hole there for the eventual oleo strut that's going to go in there. So that's all going to fit really nice. When the thing is made, you're basically going to take those tabs, use them as a place to glue it, and glue it on the inside like that. so that when you fold this thing over, you're going to have a wheel well. And this is very common how these are done. All those tabs will get glued down. You just got to take it real slow, but you end up with a wheel well, and that will be your wing, and then that will go up there. So now here's the second wheel well being built. So I've cut this thing out. Notice one end, the tabs are bent one way, and the other side, the tabs are bent the other. Okay, so that one is that way, and then I've bent all these things, but that one is bent the other way. That's because that's the part that's going to hold on the wheel well bottom there, and then the top piece is what's going to glue up into the wing. So you got to make sure you know which one is which, essentially. But when you stick them together, they fit very well. And each of those pieces there, each of those lines are bent, scored and bent, and you can see they sort of start to make the whole shape. So you kind of put that in, and it becomes obvious which way is which. And it's amazing how well everything fits. Look at that. It comes right around, really nice. And that ends up making this little edging that goes all the way around that wheel well base. Just like that. Okay, ultimately, there's this tab at the very bottom. So here I start building, and gluing. I started gluing at the fattest part down there at the base. And I glued that in just right on that edge like so. And the key is to go slow and methodical. Make sure everything dries and glues before you go to the next part. Here I'm gluing this down, making sure it's giving it some pressure and the tab is getting glue on it. Put some more glue on some pieces on these little tiny guys. They're cut like that with so many teeth because they go around that curve, just like that. See that? When that curves, they'll fit real nice in there. So the key is to, again, go slow, methodical, add a little glue, dry it. I use my tweezers a lot to grab all the way through from one side and to squeeze. See, I'm squeezing the teeth down as I go along there and work my way down. And that gives me a nice gluing surface. So this piece is going to get glued down just like so on there. And again, you just make sure that everything is even and everything is straight. So again, I made sure that it's butted up where it's supposed to be and vertical. And a couple times you have to twiddle it a little bit. It works very well though. Don't get me wrong. This one didn't work out as well as actually the other one, as we'll see. But overall, it'll be just fine. Again, I press on from this outside part, or from the inside, I guess, just to make sure I got that down. Now, this is the last bit of glue that goes on a tab that folds over on the outside like that. And that kind of locks everything in place. You got to squeeze it shut, and I do so with a pair of tweezers. Again, making sure it's nice and solid on there. Making sure everything is vertical, making sure I got good contact with my tabs, and making sure that I got my little oleo strut hole with a piece of bamboo skewer. Started it with an X-Acto blade and then did that. And then there's just kind of what it's going to look like when I stick it in. And again, this one doesn't fit as well as the previous one. Of course, the one I did before showing you worked better, but you do get the idea on how this works, and it works quite well. So the next thing to do is just start to glue these tabs and glue them to the inside surface of the lower wing, just like that. And we'll stop there to show you the next step, which will be more gluing and adding.